in opposition, I recognize for speaking.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Kopacki, representing the National Rifle Association. We're opposed to any additional policies or procedures that would increase the burdens for law-abiding people to obtain permits in the Commonwealth. And we do sponsor and support a number of educational opportunities throughout the Commonwealth.
Ford Van Cleve, President of BCPI. Yes, we also oppose these additional requirements on this. For a couple of years in the late 90s, Kelly could say there was no requirement whatsoever for training. We had no problems during those 2 years. Also, a person who might find themselves in a mode where they need to get a concealed handgun fairly quickly, something's happened in their life, they're suddenly under severe threat. The online training will allow them to speed that up as much as possible, be able to get that permit and protect their lives. Finally, we're not police officers. We don't need hundreds of hours of training. In fact, the hundreds of hours they get isn't in carrying guns. That's a tiny little fraction of that. It's in everything else that a police officer has to do, and we've got no need to do. So we don't need that much training. That's very nice.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Freitas, welcome to the committee. In answer to Mr. Ferris's question earlier, I'm a resident of the 69th district, and I vehemently, vigorously oppose this bill.
Anyone else that would like to raise their hand in opposition? Okay. All right, committee operates by motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Move the report.
Subsequent motion, move to PBI. Second.
We have a substitute motion to PBI and a second.
Mr. Chairman, is that both bills we need to?
Yes, I'll be on both bills. House Bill 91 and 602. Okay? Cash. Yes.
I like
Winner,
it.
you can
No,
vote
sir.
no.
No, sir.
Have you all voted?
Mine's not coming.
Mr. Chairman, your vote would be a yea vote.
Oh, I like
Okay, next, this be the next block is the Delegate Plum, Survivor, Sabine,
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, these bills are very much likely all relate to background checks. And the response to a question earlier, either in the paper, was whether or not we had any personal experience with this. I'm sad to tell you that I come to your committee today that I have in the past month had a personal experience. Personal experience is that around the Christmas holiday, a young man who had been disallowed from seeing a daughter of the couple who lived in our neighborhood came there at 5 o'clock in the morning and with a handgun shot the mother and the father who was disallowed from seeing their daughter. He attempted to shoot himself, and he's in the emergency room, continues medical intensive care, but he wasn't successful in killing himself, but he took out the couple. And there's too many incidents of this. And when you talk to the public about the rise of violence in our society, you hear about the notion of that. What we ought to do is we ought to make sure that people who are violent prone and people who are mentally unstable should not have access to a gun. We ought to have some kind of background system. There is a background system, we just know it. It's a federal system, and what these bills propose to do is essentially put the federal system in place. Now, before I take up any more time, I want Delegate Guzman to make a presentation like which she's in the block, and then also to hear from the administration, because this is an administration bill as well.
That's fine. That's the deal. No, you do. It's simple.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would like to start by saying that I'm here because I owe it to my neighbor that I lost, who lived in my district. She was killed by her husband from her child. She was 29 years old. After that day, I decided to run for office. take place without background check. A study shows done by Queen Pitt University that 98% of Democrats and 90% of Republicans support requiring a background check on all gun buyers. 2015 public policy polling found that 83% of gun owners, including 72% of NRA members, support background checks for all gun sales. So this is something we all want simply for the greater good. We don't wanna change the Constitution. Nobody can change that. That's not possible. But we just don't want massacres like what happened in Virginia in 2007 in Virginia Tech, and are happening within the last 16 months in Las Vegas, Orlando, and Texas to happen here in Virginia. Finally, I would like to conclude just by sharing a statement that I had from New York, and this is what this person said. Traffickers were caught on wiretaps, bragging about their ability to buy guns for resale and mocking Virginia's weak gun laws, authorities said. I can go get 20 guns from the store tomorrow. I can do that Monday through Friday. They might start looking at me, but in Virginia, our laws are so little that I can give guns away. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, if we could, by way of presentation, if we could have the representative of the administration speak to the bill.
Please come forward and state your name and have a seat.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Nikki Samasi. I'm the Assistant Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. All of these bills approach universal background checks in a little bit of different ways. Specifically, we have been working with Doug. I want to thank all of the patrons for sponsoring these bills. This is a major priority of the Northern administration. We support the bill. We think that universal background checks are important to public safety, making sure that guns don't end up in the hands of dangerous individuals. And we know that the Virginia State Police identified 3,500 denied firearms transactions in the past year. Not all of those may have resulted in an arrest, but as you all know, the Virginia State Police investigates 100% of denials. So making sure that people who shouldn't have firearms don't get access to them. So we would ask that you all support the bill.
Thank you very much.
That represents our formal presentation. I know there are a number of people in the audience who would like to speak, Mr. Chairman, if you permit.
And we'll hold till 7:17 until after this. You can present that next. That's not listed as part of the call, but you'll be next after this. Okay, now to the public. All those who would like to speak in favor.
Mr. Chairman, Member Garage, Virginia Center for Public Safety. This is the 11th year that I've been before you for this issue of primarily of background checks. And over the years, it's now no longer a question of what would happen if we adopted this. Many states have adopted exactly this kind of legislation, and they have all seen a reduction in gun deaths. They've seen a reduction in gun murders, in gun suicides, a reduction in the number of women who are killed in domestic violence issues, and they've even seen a reduction in the number of police officers killed with guns. It's no longer a question of what would happen, it's just how many lives could be saved. One state actually lowered their restrictions on background checks, and that was Missouri, and went the opposite way. And within the first few years, they saw a 23% increase in gun homicides. Over the following 2 years, it leveled out to be a 16% increase in gun homicides by taking away the permit to purchase, which had a background check in it. That's an increase of 55 to 63 people per year in Missouri. If we could see, when I started doing this, we had about 800 people die a year from guns in Virginia. It's now 950. If we could get rid of some of those, then we would be in a much better shape. 55 to 60 people would fill this room. If you're voting on this today, it's not a vote whether, it's a vote between keeping people alive or giving people a slight discomfort of having to find a way of getting a background check on the file.
Yes, sir.
In opposition, when people talk in opposition to universal background checks, they often bring up, oh, Second Amendment shall not be infringed. But when you think about it, for the security of a free state was the real meat of the Second Amendment. At the time, not having guns infringed for townspeople who had to travel back and forth by horseback, that was the means for them to provide for the security of a free state. Now, back then, if they knew that their local gunsmith or their armory was getting guns taken by criminals, by insane people, by terrorists, they wouldn't say, oh, Second Amendment, nothing we can do about it. They would have done about it. They would have said, we gotta stop guns from getting into the wrong hands. And they would have taken action. And year after year after year, we've asked you to at least let us have this conversation on the legislative floor, and that's what we're doing now. We know, just a couple months after the testimony on this bill last year, that a gun trafficking ring was busted right here in Virginia. Dozens of people were arrested, and they were recorded on the phone saying they are taking advantage of Virginia's weak gun laws. We know this is a problem. I've heard from gun rights activists, they said, oh, private sales don't happen in gun shows. Governor McAuliffe then had voluntary background checks. And private gun sellers, not many, maybe just 100 total, but they actually took their private sale and would go get a background check at a gun show. So we know that that was misinformation. And surprise, surprise, a felon was denied from this process. But it was just one. What can we learn from that? Well, the state of Washington last year, from August 2017 up until December 2017, they have universal background checks there. And they recorded from the sales that they have there from licensed dealers who performed background checks. They had, in that 5-month period, 1,200 denied sales. So are people taking advantage of the gun show loophole? Yes, they are. The only question that we have now is how many of these felons are applying for NRA membership so they can get free admission to the gun show. Our opposition has called this a gun grabbing scheme. That's just not the case. The background check process is simple. You fill out a form, we check it against a criminal database. If you check out, that's fine. That form is put in a box by the gun seller. That box, after a period of time, is taken to a warehouse in Virginia where it's stored. You can't, it's against the law to put it on a computer. By contrast, if you're an NRA member or a VCDL member, your name is put on a registration list of gun owners. And I hope their computer security is strong, because I know a lot of foreign powers would like to get their hands on that information. Finally, I was going to go back to New Jersey, which has universal background checks, versus Virginia. Again, from 2014, 2017, we had 14 and 11 gun deaths, not including suicides. New Jersey, 1,116. The difference in suicides, we have 400 more Virginians committing suicide per year as compared to New Jersey. I refuse to believe that Virginia is a more depressing place to live than New Jersey. Injuries, 3401 for Virginia, 2456 for New Jersey. Almost 1,000 more injuries in that time period. Officers shot in that time period, Virginia 33, New Jersey 20. Armed home invasions. Home invasions in which the criminal was armed. Between 2014 and 2017, Virginia had 270, New Jersey 85. And keep in mind, not only New Jersey, but we are the #1 out-of-state provider for New Jersey, the District of Columbia, Maryland, and New York. For the security of the free state, this is a public safety committee. We deserve to have a conversation about universal background checks on the legislative floor. I encourage you to vote yes on this. Thank you.
I'll defer to the state police's stand.
Mr. Chairman, Keenan Hope, State Police, we support the administration's bill.
Mr. Chairman, Josh Horowitz, the Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence, we support the bill. I'll just be brief and say that while we've been talking about this over the last couple of years, the gun death rate, the homicide rate in Virginia in the last 5 years is up over 50%, and the gun suicide rate in the last 10 years is up 21%. We have a gun violence problem in Virginia. This committee is the committee that's supposed to deal with gun violence. I urge you to pass this bill to do something about gun violence.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin Mauer, Virginia Catholic Conference, we also support the bill. We want to protect all human life, and we don't want to necessarily further restrict who can have a gun. We just want to enforce the current law, which is that convicted felons cannot possess a gun. We want that to be enforced in order to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of current loopholes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lori Haas, the Virginia State Director for the Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence. We certainly support the bill. We understand that universal background checks targets prohibited people. Those persons who are already prohibited under law. As we know, the federal law has prohibitions on a number of persons related to their criminal history, dishonorable discharge, drug use, domestic violence, mental health adjudications, and non-citizens. In addition, Virginia has additional prohibitions on persons who are convicted felons, individuals 29 or younger who are adjudicated delinquent and had a crime which would have been a felony, certain types of drug use, domestic violence, certain persons who have been acquitted by reason of insanity and committed to custody, also persons who have been involuntarily admitted to a facility, and those adjudicated legally incompetent and mentally incapacitated, and also minors, persons under the age of 18. These persons are prohibited by law, and yet we have circumstances where they're able to purchase firearms, certainly online, certainly through individual sales, and some of those take place at gun shows. So this background check bill is aimed at.
Yeah.
Yes.
Question. When you purchase, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. When you purchase a firearm online, does that dealer not have to ship it to an FFL dealer where you undergo a background check?
If you're buying it from a seller who is a FFL, yes, you're correct, Delegate, but if you're purchasing it from an individual seller, of which there are many of those online, you can meet on a street corner and purchase a firearm. I have it happens, we have instances of that happening.
So if, for the questions, if I'm purchasing a firearm that's gonna cross state lines, does that firearm not have to go to an FFL dealer for a background check?
Yes, it does, you're correct. There's no way though for law enforcement to enforce that if they're not aware of the sale. If it's happening between two individuals and the seller is not licensed, he has no obligation, he has an obligation to send it to a federally licensed dealer, but no one is aware if he or she is doing that or not doing that.
Further question, Mr. Chairman?
Actually, last one.
Last question. Would not law enforcement not be informed that two criminals were selling firearms amongst each other?
How would they be informed? That's the point. At this point in time, they're not required to be informed. I believe sellers are good people. I believe that firearms owners are good people, and the majority are law abiding. And if they will follow the law, if we have a law that requires them to sell their firearms using and taking advantage of the Virginia Firearms Transaction Program, then I believe they'll do it. I believe that the citizens of the Commonwealth, generally speaking, are law abiding and will follow the law. So we support the bill. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Gina Reeder, working mom from Chesterfield County. My point is, I think that all public-facing markets need to follow the same protocol. And there is enough precedent for that. If you have an e-commerce business, you have to respect patent laws, trademarks, copyrights, follow shipping restrictions, which means you can't ship ammunition, aerosols, follow age restrictions. If you sell vapor materials online, you're not allowed to sell that to a minor. There's licensing and permits that they have to follow. There is PCI compliance, which is to ensure that your online payment practice is secure, and there are rules in how you store data. So my point is, you have all of this level of compliance that e-commerce businesses need to follow, just like bricks and mortar, and the same should be with following the background check system if you're selling the same type of product. And furthermore, if you would like to pick and choose which public-facing markets can sell with the background check and cannot, and if you find a constitutional dilemma in that, then I challenge anybody here to put up a bill next year that just eliminates background checks altogether for all businesses and see how that flies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Joanne Sweeney. I'm with the Liberal Women of Chesterfield County and beyond, and we strongly support this bill for all the reasons you heard here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to, show their, being in favor, please raise their hand.
Could I add one more thing?
I'm sorry, you've had your time.
I understand. Want to add one more thing?
Okay, thank you very much. Those in opposition?
Chris Kopak again, representing the National Rifle Association, and we oppose expanding any background check systems, because background checks don't stop criminals from getting firearms, because some of these proposals, would deprive individuals of due process of law, and, we're opposing that registration. Federal studies have showed repeatedly over and over again that persons imprisoned for firearm crimes, often they get their firearms mostly through theft, the black market on the street, and through friends and families to straw purchases. Background checks would do nothing to deter or change criminal behavior. That we
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the gentleman. Sir, if I go to a firearms, an FFL dealer, and I purchase a firearm, and then I take that firearm and I sell it to another individual, is that a straw purchase?
Mr. Chairman, W. Weber, I believe so, what you're describing would be a straw purchase. If your intent at the time of the purchase was to transfer to somebody else.
Mr. Chairman, quick question. Is that illegal?
Mr. Chairman, W. Weber, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Further comment?
Okay, please, DCBL, yes, we completely oppose this. Universal background checks, do not stop bad people who get guns. I'll give a classic example of this. They surveyed prisoners in jail, in prison for gun-based crime, and 97% of them did not go through a background check again, even though in Illinois, you can't have a gun unless you've got a firearm with an owner identification card, you have the background checks and everything else. Easy answer is a straw purchase, what we were just talking about. Person A gets person B who doesn't have the background issue to buy a gun, and you do this over and over, you go through all the background checks in the world, they still get their guns. Theft is another one. They break into, for example, gun stores. We've had some of that in Virginia. They'll steal 40, 50, 60 guns. Those things are headed off to the bad guys, friends and family, things of this nature. By the way, the Missouri thing comes up every now and then. The crime rate in Missouri was climbing under universal background checks. When they got rid of the requirement for that, the rate kept climbing a little bit. It was already on an upward trajectory. It wasn't like down and suddenly shut up and they got rid of universal background checks. So, we strongly oppose. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Bob Sadler, South Redmond. I vehemently oppose the insertion of government in the transfer of my private property. Now, some folks may not sympathize, that's fine. But there are more practical issues. In most of the states where this has been rejected, one of the main reasons is the sheriffs throw up their hands and say, how am I supposed to enforce this? Am I supposed to track down every posting on the internet, chase every ad in the local recycle paper? Also, I'd like to correct a misstatement from earlier about 90 or 95, however many percent of people wanting background checks. I will defer to Lieutenant Hook of the State Police, but we spoke about this earlier. And the voluntary background checks are currently running less than 2 per ship. Now, if that equals 90%, that's some awful fuzzy math. I would like to close with a point of unity. For the first time in my life, I found common ground with Mr. Romans. I was born and raised in New Jersey, and it is a lot more depressing than Virginia. Gentlemen, don't use New Jersey as a barometer for anything.
Oh, that's a sloppy argument.
Anyone else would like to?
National Rifle Association, I just wanted to point out that a private sale does not change any of the state or federal prohibitors on who is able to lawfully possess a firearm.
Hello, Mike Wilson. Adding a requirement to run a background check to an FFL for a private transaction is unfair and unnecessary burden on honest people. 2, this bill will not deter any crime because the requirement for mandatory background checks is not enforceable. Most importantly, universal background checks is the first step towards gun registration and confiscation. Please do not report this bill. Thank you.
Anyone else speaking in opposition?
I also vehemently oppose the bill. I would like to say that in order for the security of a free state, the phrase is thrown about with the emphasis on security. I'd like for the consideration to be that the emphasis is rightly on the word free. I oppose the bill because it's nobody's business how I buy a gun. It's nobody's business how I might inherit a gun or I might be gifted a gun. It's a matter of freedom and nothing else.
The bill exempts family to
And
family
those in
transfer.
opposition that didn't speak, that would like to raise their hand, feel free to do so. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, before you conclude, I'd like to just say a few words on behalf of the bill. This is my bill. Is now the proper time?
It'll be fine.
Thank you, Mr.
Bill
Chairman.
convened.
So, in states that require background checks for all handgun sales, 47% fewer women are shot to death by their intimate partners. There are 53% fewer firearm suicides, and 53% fewer law enforcement officers are shot to death by handguns. So, it's about double. These laws do work. They will decrease murders and suicides by 1/2. And that's what the statistics show, and that's why law enforcement strongly supports this. I hear all the time from gun rights advocates that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Actually, these statistics show that the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is don't let a bad guy have a gun. If you vote to pass this bill by, or you vote to table this bill by, let's be very clear what you're voting for. You're voting for giving guns to bad guys. Because background checks don't stop good guys. I have no doubt that all the gun owners in this room could pass a background check. And we know that most guns are sold from FFLs, from gun stores, and they have to pass a background check. And most guns are bought that way. The problem is not the legal people, the good people, the people that have owned guns, following the law. They aren't criminals. But a vote to pass this by is a vote to say, we want terrorists to have guns. We want the MS-13 to have guns. We just had an election where people said, what are we going to do about these gangs with guns? And now, if this bill's passed by, you're voting to give guns to gang members. You're voting to give guns to domestic violence abusers. You're voting to give guns to very dangerous people that none of us would want in this room with a gun right now. So I want to be very, very clear. This bill does not prohibit anyone who doesn't have this record of violence from getting a gun. And if you do have a long record of violence, or mental illness, or convictions for domestic violence, then I hope we would all agree you shouldn't own a gun. And I don't know why everyone on this side believes that people who commit domestic violence should have guns. Right, I think that the laws say they shouldn't have guns, and to allow this loophole, it doesn't make any sense to not allow enforcement of the laws we have on the books. Otherwise, you're voting to give the bad people, it doesn't affect the good people, you're voting to give the bad people guns. Thank you for your time.
I'll have a final comment. I disagree with some of your comments very strongly. It's okay to have a difference of opinion, but to accuse someone of taking a certain vote and being in favor of guns going to terrorists and so forth, I resent that. And I think you probably owe this committee an apology for those remarks. The rest of it,
Mr. Chair, before you call for the vote, I would just like to make a comment and speak to the bill. Sitting on this committee now for over 11 years, and this bill has been brought before this committee regarding universal back check. We hear from both sides of the incidents of who opposes and who's for it, but people are constantly being killed. We are now in an environment as we look around and that children, adults, criminals have guns so readily available. And one thing that we can do to prevent this measure or be a deterrent to the wrong people having a gun, it's certainly just passing a bill to have a universal back check. We're not taking the guns from individuals who have properly gone through the process, but we are trying to prevent the guns from going into the wrong individual's hands. And with people getting killed these days, this is just one basic law, a universal back check. Just completing the process. If you don't have anything to hide, you don't have to worry about the back check. You know, it's just, I just see this as going down the wrong road, and I hope as this committee goes forward, that we will begin to listen to the constituents, listen to the people who are concerned. We're not trying to take away your rights, but we're just trying to help save lives, and that's by getting guns off the street. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
If I can also say, and just kind of elaborate on your own comments, as someone that has a little bit more experience combating terrorism than a radio personality, I also don't appreciate the suggestion that if I disagree with somebody on this particular bill, it somehow insinuates that I want firearms in the hand of terrorists. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Recognize.
Move to PBI, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion been made and second to PBI the following bill in a block. 40, 721, 977, and 1373. All in favor of PBI, let it be known by voting so, or cast your vote on the bill.
Again, clerk, my machine is not working, but yeah.
I think it is. All right, the bill is PBI order 46. Now, Delegate Plum, you've got 717. It's related, but it's a little bit different, so I thought I'd give you a chance to that.
Take that. And I'm gonna make it clear that I'm not here to do anything other than what we've always started in was. And that is to and we can argue about what the numbers are. But I mean, if background check complete, and specifically violence, we should complete that. The law-abiding citizens, it has all the power of men, and we are inconvenient to those. And so the bill is here, is the bill been crafted by the current administration, which does the same thing as the other bills that we looked at previously, and I hope that we could calm the waters a bit and take a look at if we can make a step forward. My constituents all over the place tell me that we know there's no excuse expression social, there's no easy solution. If you can make a step forward, what will accomplish for reducing gun violence.
What are the processes for the patron staff? What are the differences between the last bill that you had and this bill?
Mr. Chairman, the difference between the last bills you voted on and this bill is, this bill only applies to firearm shows, gun shows. So it only requires mandatory background checks at gun shows. So it's a much narrower version of the
Like Plum, like I said, I appreciate your remarks today, and since your bill, still allowed public comment, your bill was very similar to the rest of them. If anyone in the audience would like to speak either way, then I'll give you the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm gonna add that one point that, I wanted to earlier. This is some delicate information that I'm gonna give, so in giving this information, I just ask people that can hear me for this not to leave this room. If you go on a computer and you type in 2215 Plank Road, Fredericksburg, Virginia, you'll be connected to a site called undergroundassaultrifle.com. Underground being a synonym for black market. On the title it says, how to build your own AR-15 ghost gun.
If you would please keep your remarks to the bill before us.
No
We're discussing,
I will tie up the loose
Just a
ends.
second. Now, if you want to discuss, that's fine, but that's what the discussion is gonna be about. We've had a lot of discussion on background checks, and this is what we're discussing now. So I'll just ask you to close your remarks. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Chairman, Andrew Ballard, Virginia Center for Public Safety. Richmond Times Dispatch recently, 2 days ago, reported that a very minimum estimate was 1,200 to 1,500 firearms are sold at 75 Virginia gun shows each year from people who have no federal licenses. That's a very low estimate in my experience from the gun shows I've been to. But that's still 1,500 guns, which could fall into the hands of people who are not allowed by law.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for Josh Horowitz from the Education Fund to Stop Gun Violence. Just make the point that the technology, state police are doing this already, the technology has been perfected in many other states. This is something that we can do today, and it doesn't make sense to have some tables where there are background checks being done and other tables that are not being background checks done. So I think this is a simple, easy way to make sure that everybody in a commercial situation, such as a gun show, goes through a background check to make sure that people who have convictions of felonies, who have domestic violence protective orders, don't have access to firearms by going to the table that says, that doesn't require background check.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin Maurer, Virginia Catholic Conference, we support, just want to point out that this does not apply to transfers between friends, acquaintances, it would only be at gun shows. Thank you.
Anyone else wants to speak in favor?
Hi, Nikki Zamaski, Assistant Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. For all of the reasons already mentioned, the administration supports the bill.
Good afternoon, Lauren Haas with the Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence, and for all the reasons, already discussed, we support the bill. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to show their opposition by raising the hand or standing?
Support or?
In favor, beg your pardon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, those in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, Chris Kopacki, National Rifle Association. Just want to point out one study that's very relevant to this topic. The Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2013 looked at prison inmates specifically and examined where they were getting their guns from that they were using in crimes. And they found that less than 1%, 0.8% actually of prison inmates in their study bought a firearm from a gun show. Overwhelmingly, the majority of firearms were obtained again from family, friends, black market, off the street, and other illegitimate means.
All right. Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Gentleman Bob Sapper, South Richmond. I know gun shows better than anybody else in this room because I spent 5 years as Richmond's gun show coordinator. I know these things inside and out, and I spent years going around and talking to these people. And I can tell you for a fact that I never met a single soul who said, well, gee, I guess I'll have to let the government do a background check. I had a bunch of people tell me they wouldn't sell their guns at gun shows anymore. But the overwhelming sentiment was, I'll come in here, meet people, and if I find someone who's interested, gee, it's getting late, I'm gonna go to lunch, why don't you meet me back here in 45 minutes? Now you've got that transfer going through at the parking lot of McDonald's or CVS, a food line. Personally, I want that transfer done in the gun show, under the watchful eyes of local, state, and federal law enforcement. Thank you.
All right, anyone else is opposed, would like to raise their hand or stand, feel free to do so. Okay. Any comment from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking for.
Billy, well,
First of all, this committee tends to handle some very emotional subject matter. So I applaud the chairman on maintaining the integrity of the committee. I would like to thank Delegate Plum for working on meaningful legislation. While I disagree with the policy, because we have voluntary background checks at gun shows, and to quote somebody who had spoken earlier, a majority of gun owners and those that are selling at gun shows want to do the right thing, which is why they do occasionally utilize the service that we now provide. And with that, I have a motion, Mr. Chairman. I move to PBI to be.
Motion been made and seconded for PBI. All cast a vote on the voting sheet. Has everyone voted?
Oh, wait, hold on, what does it say? Does it say pass by?
Has everyone voted?
It doesn't say. Does it say pass by on your deal?
Motion is passed by.
It doesn't like.
If we have trouble with machines, we'll have to do a loss vote. Your machine not working?
It's not working again, so, yeah, yes.
Okay. Well, let's just do a roll call. Slaughter, with you.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Vote is 4-2. PBI. Delegate Levine, on the 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I mean no offense to the committee. I am passionate about this issue, but I certainly mean no offense.
Appreciate that.
So, whereas universal background checks, whereas universal background checks is a very broad solution, and I think will save a lot of lives, I fully admit that HB 41, the bill to ban bump stocks, is a narrow solution. And yet, any lives saved, to me, that's a plus. I fully admit that prior to October 1st of last year, I'd never heard of a bump stock, but I think the entire nation learned what happened and what bump stocks were when a gunman fired on a large group of people enjoying country music in Las Vegas. This one man, using bump stocks, was able to increase the firing rate of his semi-automatic weapon to 9 bullets per second, about 3 or 4 times what he could do without the bump stock, and ended up shooting more than 1,000 rounds in just 10 minutes. The carnage was severe. 600 people were shot, 58 people died, and I think had he only had a semi-automatic, he would have still done tremendous carnage. He would have done about 1/3 to 1/4 that amount of carnage. Only 150 people would have been shot. Only maybe 15 people would have died. The bump stock quadrupled his kill rate. This is a bill that they considered at the federal level, and the NRA, the National Rifle Association, said at the time that it might be time to regulate bump stock. Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, said it might be time to regulate bump stocks. Now, I don't often agree with the NRA, and I don't often agree with Paul Ryan, but I agree with both of them that this is the kind of increasing the fire capacity of firearms that we don't need. Machine guns have been banned in the United States since the 1930s, ever since John Dillinger, Machine Gun Kelly used to take them out in Prohibition times and shoot lots of people dead. The machine guns are regulated under federal law from the 1980s, been around for 40 years. It's very, very hard to get them. You have to go through far more substantial background checks. It's actually very hard to get these weapons of war, and I think that's as it should be. We don't let citizens own tanks. We don't let citizens own anthrax. I think that these bump stocks are a simple loophole designed to evade machine gun laws. And I think that if even the NRA and I and Paul Ryan can agree that bump stocks shouldn't be legal, that this is where this time has come. I will tell you this, I know that these 2 states have passed a bump stock ban, and they passed it unanimously with no negative votes from Democrats or Republicans. So I hope you consider supporting it.
You got anyone here to testify?
I assume a number of people will say some things. Oh, actually, there's one specific person I should mention, I'm sorry. This is Courtney Carroll, who was actually in Las Vegas.
Please come forward.
On the day of the.
State your name, please.
My name's Courtney Carroll. I am a Route 91 Harvest Festival survivor, and I apologize if I get choked up. It's only been less than 4 months, so it's still is it with me every day. But I just want to share with you my story. If you'd asked my friends in September what words they would use to describe me, they would have said fun-loving, spontaneous, energetic, fearless, trusting, and always willing to try new things. I was a successful salesperson, a confident mother, a dancer, and instructor. All of that changed the night of October 1st. I joined my boyfriend, my uncle, and my aunt to celebrate my birthday at the Route 91 Country Music Festival in Las Vegas. You see, my two favorite activities were dancing and going to country music concerts. It's my happy place. I'm the crazy girl who lines up early to stand in the front of the stage. On October 1st, when my aunt and I were singing along, in the front of the stage to Jason Aldean, the first single shots rang out. I mentioned the sound and everyone around me just assured me that it was fireworks. Seconds later, what sounded to me like machine gun fire that you could only imagine in a movie rang out. Seconds later, we crouched down. You see, we were packed in this venue of 22,000 people. There was nowhere to go. As I laid down covered by people, I kept thinking that this couldn't be happening. You only read this in the news and hear about this in stories. I prayed for my life and I prayed for my safe return to my children here in Richmond. The sounds of that night haunt me daily. The screams, the crying, the people yelling. After 5 rounds of shooting, which seemed like forever, there was a break. We ran. We ran and joined the crowd of people trying to get out of the exits. We spent the next minutes running for our lives and hiding behind cars for cover. While he reloaded,